Welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. On this episode, we have Neal back from the state of Georgia for a part 2 podcast. We continue exploring years of activity on his property. This time, Neal shares his son's incredible sightings, his wife's encounter through a thermal device, and why he believes Sasquatch chose his land as a safe haven, and the lessons he's learned after years of living alongside these mysterious creatures. We also discuss his books, his research, and some fascinating theories that developed through decades of first-hand experiences. If you enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, feel free to share your own personal Bigfoot encounters and experiences with me here on the show at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. You can also like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you really enjoy the channel, you can join the membership today. With all that being said, here's part 2 of my conversation with Neal from Georgia. All right, Neal, welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the show today. Neal, if you would, give us a little info about yourself and the experiences that you didn't mention in the first podcast. Let's talk about everything, okay?
It sounds good. My name is Neal. I'm with BigfootTalk.com. In fact, I started that site to share information of things that I've seen here. The Bigfoot family that we cohabitate with do. The first thing, though, I'd like to thank the people that watched the episode that we did on July 7th. Y'all had such kind comments and everything, and I really appreciate that because that really means a lot. And I even responded to some people because of the fact that it was so nice, it deserved a comment back. The couple of the comments was talking about you ought to write a book. And I let them know, but briefly I'll let you know also, I've already written 2 books. One is called Understanding Bigfoot, a guide for outdoor enthusiasts. And the other one is Bigfoot in Georgia, the Cohabitation Chronicles, when Bigfoot let us know they were there. Now, that last one is a 5-book series of things that have happened here. I'm working on the second book of the 5 books now. The first one just gives overviews of the patterns that you would notice when you're camping, fishing, hiking, and hunting, and what it may mean and what's the best action for you to take to make it a safe interaction with them. But one of the things I wanted to do is get into, I talked about a lot of the sightings that I had on the last podcast. I wanted to tell a few that my son's had. He's seen 4 here, and he's seen 1 somewhere else. And I want to briefly tell those things that have happened here that he's seen and the one he saw somewhere else. One day, my wife and he was planting some flowers on the porch. And my wife needed some more dirt to go and to put in the pots for the plants. So he went down to the creek where I had a pile of dirt that we had dug up to make a pad in the backyard for people to relax and talk on. And he went there to get some dirt, but it was so grown up with stuff and had so many roots in it, he couldn't get it. So he decided to go another 15 yards down into the woods, into the creek. And when he did, he got the shock of his life. Down there on the other side, we have a little barn. It used to be a hay barn a long time ago when they farmed this location. And actually, it has a chair in the back of it that was brought from the pond 2/10 of a mile away and put there. And I know what put it there. Nothing else can make something go through the woods and you move 2/10 of a mile from one place to another. And I'll tell about that later on. But as he got down to the creek, he started to dig some dirt and he saw movement out of the corner of his eye. And he looked and he saw a young one looking at him. And I don't know who was scared her, if it was him or the Bigfoot, the young Bigfoot. He said it was like a cartoon. He said The thing moved so fast, it was like a blur. He said it was just there in a streak gone. He said it was crazy. And I said, did you ever hear it? He said, no, that weird thing about it, I never heard a sound from it. I just saw it. Spook Tim, he hadn't gone down to around that little barn again. He's not scared to, but he just hadn't gone down there. He avoids going down there unless somebody's down there with him. The second sighting he saw was very unusual. I came after it and kind of figured out what I believe happened. We were coming home from work, and he was on the road getting ready to pull into our driveway. And when he, on the left-hand side of the road, it dips down a lot, a really deep, steep hill. At the bottom of it, there's a fence with some brush sticking up, but there's a couple of holes in the fence, a lot in the middle of it, but still had some trees and stuff covering it. But I've seen it in the winter, so I know that there's a couple of holes in it. Well, as he swerved to come into my driveway, the lights cut into the bottom some, and he saw two things on all four coming at him. And he put on his brakes, slowed down, and he said, Dad, this was not wild hogs. He said, I think it was Bigfoot. He said, I think there were two young Bigfoot. And I said, well, what'd you do? He said, well, I wanted to make sure. So I went on down across the bridge, turned into a driveway to turn around to come back to see if I could see them because I'd be on that side of the road. And he said, when I crossed the bridge, down at the other end of that fence was something backlit by a nightlight in the yard. He said, Dad, it was so big. I said, how big was it? He said, I can't tell you, but he said, it was crazy how big. He said, I can't even guess at how tall it was, but I would guess 8 foot or more. And he goes, and that's probably on the low side because he's down in the hole. He said, I said, so what'd you do? He said, I pulled into the driveway and got my butt home. I said, okay. After that day he was talking about, I remember that night I was coming home from work. I was probably 15, 20 minutes behind him. And I remember in the field over to the left behind the fence, there was a bunch of wild hogs in that field. We don't have any wild hogs on our place, but there's some on that place. Not anymore anyway. We had a couple of them that were here. They're gone now. But there were wild hogs all in that field. So I'm thinking, my best guess is they came up out of the creek to that side in that ditch, and they were sneaking down those trees to see if they could grab one of those hogs through the trees, through one of those openings in the fence. And I think that's what was happening. It probably had the one big adult and the two little ones that were sneaking up, trying to sit down and be real quiet. And if a wild hog got close enough, they would grab it, just like they would a deer. So I think that's what happened on that, because we have a lot of little ones around here, or had a lot of little ones around here, and a lot of juveniles, because when it was a nursery site, each young one or baby would have a juvenile with them. So I think he saw two juveniles coming up, sneaking up the creek, and the other one was already there, and he just didn't see it. And when he turned around and saw the big one, that was the third one that he saw. But one of the most unique situations that he had was on an expedition. He was on an expedition, and the leader of the expedition saw on his thermal a big hot thing behind a rock, a boulder. It was a boulder. It wasn't a rock. It was a boulder because it was about 5 foot tall. And he knew it was one. He knew it was a Bigfoot because nothing else would be taller than that 5 foot tall rock. Nothing would be, even a bear, unless a bear is standing up. And he knew it wasn't a bear. But anyway, so he asked, there was a little trail down there off the road that they were on. There was a little trail, and he says, anybody want to go with me? I'm going to go sneak up on it. And nobody went but my son. He's usually not scared of anything, but he said he went with them. So they were sneaking up, and they could see this thing picking up something to its mouth and then putting it back down. And it was watching them the whole way. They snuck to within 10 yards, and then it turned its back to them, and they could tell then that the shoulders came up to the top of the rock, and it was hunched over. So the guy that was leading him said it had to be at least 7 foot tall. But when they got within 10 foot, it turned its back to them, and then the guide realized this isn't good. He's always had them run from them. There's never been one just stand there. They've always run. This was the first one ever, and unless it's changed, it still is, that didn't run away. So when he realized that he was 10 yards, they were 10 yards from it, and it had a kill right there, he said, whoa, we got to back up. We got to back up on the trail like the way we came and get back up there. And to this day, he's amazed that he didn't get spooked, because you could see the thing on the thermal clear as day. And both of them had a thermal, and they could tell it was eating something, but they got within 10 yards of that one. And it was, I don't know how many people could even do that. I mean, most people would be so unnerved that they would just say, heck with it, I'm out of here, But he held his cool, and he still talks about that. The guide still talks about that to this day. He's like, that's the most incredible thing I've ever experienced, because of the fact that we got that close and it didn't run, and it didn't try to do anything because we backed off just in time. But that's the 4 that he's seen. Now, my wife has seen one on an expedition. She's actually seen one here that I saw that I already talked about, because we were all at the kitchen table and we all saw it. But she saw one time. I got her a new thermal, and the nighttime expedition was really gone. But what we do is we have a campfire where everybody meets up afterwards, where we go into the trails, and then some people stay at the campfire, some go on the trails. Well, we were back at the campfire, and one of the guys had to go use the bathroom. So he goes over there to this big oak tree and urinates on the tree. Well, about 5 minutes to 10 minutes later, she goes down there and she's testing out her new thermal. And she's looking around and she sees something crazy big. And she's looking, she sees something crazy big. So she called the guy's wife to come down there and look at it. And they were looking at it, and it was the guy's wife knew immediately, that's a Bigfoot. It was about 40 yards away, and what was throwing them off was it had peed on the ground by the tree. So there's an old saying, people have said that a guy should not pee on a tree in the Bigfoot's area. It's better to pee out in the open than on a tree, because they mark their territory the way other animals do. Is it true? I don't know. But here's this guy 5 to 10 minutes earlier had peed on the tree that she was beside. 40 yards away, there was a Bigfoot down there peeing on a tree. So either it was mimicking it, or there's something to the fact that guys shouldn't pee on trees, especially if it's getting near mating season. Shouldn't pee on a tree in their area, because they mark their area the same way other animals do. So that's one that she saw. Now, Miguel asked yesterday about why did I think that the Bigfoot stayed here? And I said, because it was a safe zone. Well, that's only part of the answer. Let me explain first how this property is set up, because it's about location, location, location. Our property is almost is 90%, 95% floodplain. We have 4 bottoms that run into our property, and the bottom flattens out into a big, low area that's a floodplain. We've got one bottom with high ridges coming in from the northwest with a little stream in it. We've got one bottom coming into us from the southwest with high ridges on both sides of it. It spreads out real wide between the ridges. Then we have another one coming from directly, it's on the east side of the property, comes in from the south, and it has high ridges on each side of it. And then we have another where they all meet and go out, goes to the east. That bottom comes in. So we have 4 big bottoms converging right here at this one location. So they like to make those bottoms travel zones. And what I've learned is, well, I did a study. I know somebody that's heard a lot of people takes reports of Bigfoot or sounds or sightings in the area. And he knew the exact location of 5 of them. So he told me where they were. Either they heard a howl or they saw one, or people reported branches being broke and stuff like that. He told me where they were. So I was able to get a friend of mine that has a listing. It shows all the bottoms coming in the whole area. And what amazed me is this location we have here is like the middle of a wheel, and every bottom, or the majority of the bottoms, actually come into or converge into some of the bottoms that's coming into here, into this property. And then it's wide, it's a big, wide, flat bottom. Perfect place to hunt. You got all the bottoms coming in, all the hardwoods down there and everything. And so I learned that, what's happening is this is a major crossroads for them, moving from the entire area. If they're moving from one area to another, they're coming over here through this area. Now, what is also strange, besides the fact that we didn't see any deer, that were not very many deer that was here, and it should have been a deer haven. Another thing that was strange is that when I was a kid, I would always hunt for arrowheads. I love to find arrowheads and pottery from settlers. And I found a bunch of them. I learned what the arrowheads were used for, or spears were used for. I learned how they made them and everything like that. So that was amazing to me. It was just one of those things where you're looking at history and you can see how people made it. But this location, I've got a place where 2 creeks meet, and it's got a pile of rocks there. I've never found the first arrowhead or pottery on this place. Not the first piece, not the first one. And this would be a great place for people to hunt. And a lot of the Native American tribes say that when they live in an area where there's Bigfoot around, they hunt one area and they leave an area for the Bigfoot. So I believe there's a possibility this is one of those examples, especially whenever we found that they had been here for a long, long time, and that the people abandoned the property 8 to 10 years ago. Something happened to make them leave. But I think there's a possibility that the reason we don't find any arrowheads nor any pottery is because they wouldn't stay in this area because they were here. I also believe that's probably why there was very few deer here, because I'm going to use a fishing term. If you throw a live worm in a pond, if the hungry fish is around, they're going to come eat it. Well, if you take a deer and put him near where the Bigfoot stay, and the Bigfoot's hungry, they're going to come get him. Deer are adverse to being killed and ate, so they're not going to hang around that area. So I think that's a possibility why there were so few deer here in the beginning, that it was like the worm. They were like the worm to the fish. They were food for the Bigfoot that was staying here on the property. So I thought that was unique about that. Another thing that was weird that I found on the property is I found it during when the nursery was here. And there is the banks here on all the creeks are 10 to 15 foot because of all the water that runs off into them. They get real high real quick. There is a dirt cave dug into one of the walls, and it's not made by water. The reason I say that is the creek turns to the left, so the water's going to erode on the right. This cove is 5 foot up the bank. It's about 12-foot tall bank there, about 5 foot up, and it's dug out, and you can't see it. It's right next to a road, but from the road you can't see it because of the way the banks are, and it goes way back. You can't even see the back of it, and there's roots from trees hanging down at the opening, and you can see roots in it, and you can see a trail going up to it. One time I was down there crossing the bridge going to the other side of the creek with my side-by-side to go to the other side of the property. And I looked down there and I saw a little footprint, a little barefoot human-like footprint going up that little trail into that hole. Then I also saw one time when the water was real low, a footprint on on some sand that was in the middle that became what became uncovered, wasn't covered with water anymore. I saw a bigger track there. And the thing about that is, it took me a while to figure it out. One of the first things I said whenever I realized that we have Bigfoot here, and I'm like, how are there Bigfoot here? You know, you got roads everywhere. You got some 4-lane roads around us. Then one night, I was on the way home, me and my wife, and we were going, it was probably 11:30 at night, and it had rained a lot. The creeks and everything was up a ton. I mean, it was up really high. And my wife was on the left lane and I was in the right lane. And I saw something shoot across the road. Now, I've seen coyotes run, I've seen deer run, I've seen all kind of animals run. I've never seen anything move this fast on all fours. Whatever it was did not have a tail. And she was moving probably 70 miles an hour. And I swear where it went in front of her car couldn't have been 5 yards. I don't know how in the world she didn't hit it, but it was moving that fast and it went on down. Well, when I saw the tracks over here going towards the direction of going under this bridge, I realized anywhere, they can go anywhere. As long as there's a culvert under the road or a creek under the road, try to see down below where a creek is at night going under a road. You can't see there. So that is their highways. They're moving under the creeks, under the bridges, on the creek, through the culverts. They're moving under there. That's the way they go so they don't get seen on the road. The one that crossed that day, if it was a Bigfoot, which I don't know anything else that could move that fast, and whatever I saw did not have a tail. If it was one, it didn't go where the creek was because it was too high. So it went right there along the edge to run across the road. But that's another thing that I learned in this whole experience I've been in, that roads, bridges, creeks, bridges that have creeks underneath it or anything underneath it, culverts are their roadway. That's where they travel at. Another thing we found on the property was what's called a big boy trail. Now, I don't know if that's just a Southern expression of what it is, but that's one of the first things I found was a big boy trail. A big boy trail is when the trees along the trail are wide enough and tall enough that the biggest Bigfoot in the area can run through it and not get hit by a branch. Now, I don't know if you remember me saying it, but one of the first things I saw was this trail that was a foot and a half outside of each of my shoulders and really high, and everything had been smushed down. That was one of the big boy trails. And they take the limbs that are crossing the trails and they break them off. They'll break them on this property. They've got them broken up to 15 foot. So anything that's 15 foot tall or less running through there will not get hit by anything on these trails. So they call them a big boy trail, and we've got 3 or 4 of them on this property. That's there, and that's amazing. When we came to the place, when we came to this home and had to do a lot of work to get it back to where we wanted, again, I could tell there wasn't that many deer here. I unknowingly attracted the attention of the Bigfoot that were already here. How did I do that? I cleaned it all off. I started planting fruit trees. The next thing I did, besides planting fruit trees, I started feeding all the deer, feeding the birds. And then I even planted some stuff for the deer because I was trying to attract the deer to the location so I could see the deer. I wasn't going to hunt them, just wanted to see them. So I planted a bunch of clover. I planted a bunch of fruit trees. Oh, and the funny thing about it is I went out to the yard 2 days ago, and all my peaches were gone. Every one that was on the tree just gone. And they weren't even totally ripe, but there wasn't that many this year. So I guess they decided they weren't going to take a chance of any get taken. So they just went ahead and took them. Because every one of them, all the ones that I had, there was about 8 that I could reach, and all the others were up higher than that. And I can reach up about, I don't know, I'm 6'4", and my arms are 32 inches long, so I can reach probably 8 foot, maybe something like that. But anyway, those in the fruit trees that we have, especially the peaches, we get peach trees, pear trees, apple trees, 2 type apple trees. We've got blueberry bushes that we planted, persimmon trees that we planted. There's some fig trees that were already here. And most times, if it's the fruit they like, it's gone. As soon as it gets ripe, it's gone. But I actually learned that I was attracting them by doing all this stuff. I'm bringing food to them unknowingly. Not only that, but we refilled the water in the pond. It had no fish in it. It didn't have enough water for fish. We put water in the pond. We stocked it with fish. There again, I'm providing food for them. Then comes the coup de grace. Then I was young and dumb in the Bigfoot world. I used to be all into cryptids and stuff like that when I was young, like to watch the mysteries on TV and stuff. And I was thinking that Bigfoot was 50-50, that it was real and there might be still some alive. But I was thinking it was going to be on the West Coast. Washington State, California, Alaska, Canada, out there. And never thought that there'd be any here. And never had a clue there'd be any here. And so I built a gifting station. I thought, after I realized that Bigfoot was here, I said, I want to learn about them. And I put apples out in the beginning, and I was getting a lot of activity from them, and I was learning. So I decided, well, let me put food out for them, just like I do the deer, just like I do the birds. Because at the time, I just thought it was just a normal animal, which it's not. But at the time, I thought it was just a normal animal. So I built a gifting station where I put food out for them. Now, I will tell you that what I know now If I would have known it then, I never would have done that. And I don't suggest anybody doing it because it really depends on the group that's there. I think more people or most people get negative responses if you don't keep food out there. They go hit on the house or growl or do stuff like that to try to get more food. This group has never done that. I've been extremely lucky. And you never know what one might move in to take over the territory. So I tell everybody, don't do it. I did it and it's worked, and I hadn't had any negative responses to it, but don't do it. It's the odds aren't in your favor. One funny thing that happened though, when I had the gifting station down there, because I was putting stuff down there to find out how they opened it, how did they eat it, like the dog food. I'd take it out of the bag. Speaking of dog food, somebody asked me a while back, how do you know they like dog food? I mentioned on the last one that they took a 35-pound bag of dog food off our back porch. They didn't know, they knew it was there, but they never took it because we had a camera on the where the cars were, and we had a camera on the back porch. I didn't take it to the dog pen because I was taking little smaller bags to the dog pen. And when I ran out of them, I decided I'd take the bigger bag. I go up there on a Sunday afternoon, it's gone. 35 pounds. I asked everybody, did you take the dog food? No. And I knew nobody would take the dog food because that's my job, is to do the dogs unless they put it somewhere. So I go, I say, if they got it, I got a picture of them. I go look at the cameras, and both of the cameras, the batteries were dead. They went dead on Friday night. So I think sometime Friday or sometime Saturday, they somehow know when cameras aren't working, and they took the bag of dog food off, but they did give me back for it. They took down by where the gifting station was and where that big boy trail is, left a poop. I'm talking about the biggest poop you've ever seen. This thing is 3/4 the size around of a Pringle. And my foot's 13 and a half inches long, and it wasn't straight, but it was as long as 13 and a half inches. So it was probably more like 14 and a half to 15 inches long. It would have stopped up your toilet for days. And I said, oh, okay. So you're gifting me back for the dog food you took off my back porch. I see what you're doing. Then later, they want you to take their gifts. If you take their gifts, that shows that you're showing them respect, and they want you to take their gifts. Now, that's something that I wouldn't take, but that's the only gift I wouldn't take from them. I'll be honest with you. But a friend of mine goes down to fix the pump every time it would get stopped up. And he was down there near the pump trying to do some work on it. And there were two huge poops there sitting at right there where the pump was. And he called me and he said, hey, do you have any really big dogs here or something? And I said, no. He said, well, they've got two of the biggest poops I've ever seen in my life are here at this pump. And I don't know what could have made this. Then, as he's driving out, he calls me back and he says, hey, I don't know what's going on, but on the trail driving out, it's only one way in, one way out. The little hump in the middle of the trail where the side-by-side tires go is a new poop still smoking. He said, I don't know, it's one here, it's fresh, it's still smoking. And I said, I think I got an idea, but it's no problem. Don't worry about it. Everything will be good. The reason I say that is originally when they gifted us the first two boulders, we didn't take them because we didn't realize it was a gift from them. They moved them to make sure we knew it was a gift for them. So I think that they were pooping over there, wanting us to take their gift. And that's why they left him one in the middle of the road still smoking, to make sure that he knew that it was their gift. Of course, he didn't know anything about it. But that, like I said, that is a strange gift, and we never took it. What's really funnier about that is I've never found a poop from them again. So evidently they must think I really don't like it, because they're doing it not on the property, or not where I've seen it. They're doing it somewhere else. But unknowingly, I was attracting them. I was drawing deer in. I was putting fish, putting fruit, and then I put a gifting station with even more food. I think the original family group, I think they made this a nursery site because of all the food here. It was already a safe zone for them, but now it's got all this food's here for them. They don't have to go anywhere, and they were here year round. The only time that they would leave here is in the winter, because our bottom is all hardwoods, and in the wintertime, all the leaves will fall off. So what they would do is, there was 600 acres to the north of us. It had pine and hardwood mix. They would move there and stay there during the daytime, because nobody hunted on that 600 acres. There were some people hunting around us, but they would come back here every night, because I'd still see their footprints in the yard at night, and I'm basically butting up against the 600 acres. So they would, in the winter, they would go there at night. I mean, in the daytime to sleep, and come through here at night. But that's the only time they would move, but they still were here every night. They just would sleep over there in the daytime. So I thought that was rather unique thing to find out. Oh, another funny thing happened about the gifting station. I don't name them. I don't name the group that was here. The original group, there were four. There was an adult male. There was an adult female. There was a juvenile, and then there was a young one. But I didn't name them. But the thing about not naming them is, you don't build a relationship with them. And I didn't. First off, you got to see something a lot. And even though I saw them 4 times, and I saw glimpses of them on other times, I didn't get enough to give them a name. But one, when they made it a nursery site, one I did give a name. Now, this was a little young one, and I named it Pigpen, because I noticed this one young juvenile that was at the nursery. I noticed he would go on a little hole into the woods on all fours that's different than where the others were going. And one day it had rained for about 3 or 4 days, and I could see his footprints real clear walking over to it. I said, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to follow him to see where this one's going, see what's going on. And it's only like 25 yards to the creek from there. So I didn't have far to go. I wasn't going to go on the other side of the creek, but I'd follow it down to the creek. I go through it, and I could see his footprints clear as day, because he was sliding a little bit on the leaves, and it was making the leaves go to the side, and I see it following his footprints. I get down there. There is a log laying on the ground. Now, this log had been there for a long time, and it had moss on the log. I saw where it stepped over the log and sat down, because there was 2 footprints in front of it, where I could tell the leaves had been mashed down in front of it. And there, on that huge log, there were 2 perfect prints of butt cheeks. Their butt cheeks had rubbed the moss off the log. And in front of them, some of the stuff I put out, like crackers, sweet and salty granola bars, stuff like that, was right in front of them, and the creek was right in front of that. And then there was a huge vine that went up in a tree that was right next to where he was sitting. So I'm thinking, hey, this is perfect. He got a picnic right here. He throws his trash right there. And if anything comes to get him, he can climb up this vine like it's nothing. Got an easy getaway. But looking at it and everything, I just started laughing. I said, that one's named Pigpen because he's sure making a mess down here. That's Pigpen. And the funny thing about it was, I had somebody ask me, well, did you smell it? I said, huh? Did you smell where the butt cheeks were? I said, no, I didn't smell where the butt cheeks were. But it was funny that I could tell from the butt cheeks, and they had to be all muscle because there was a little bit of moss in between it, in between the butt cheeks, a little bit of moss. But I'm thinking, well, that must have been a female that was sitting here. By everything I saw, it must have been a female, but I thought that was extremely funny that I did name one in his little pig pen and what it was doing, making a mess down there. Now I'll tell you about some of the gifts they've given us. They have given us so many amazing gifts because they know I like the gifts. And so they give us gifts. The first one I'll tell you about, I call it the dog. My wife had this dog that was sitting down and it held this bone that said welcome on it. And she had two of them. We had one by the back door and we had an extra one. Well, my wife decided she wanted to go and put it on the trail, on the trail going across the creek. Over there on the side, there was a little flat part, and so the friends and neighbors could see when we go across there, you know, see the bone and everything, and see it, and it was real cute. But I had to tell her. I said, she says, I always burst her bubble. Well, I did it again. I said, babe, I said, you know that they feel like this side over here is their area. I said, you know that, right? And she goes, yeah. I said, that dog that says it said welcome on it. It said welcome on the bone. I said, that dog is going to disappear. They're going to take it. I'm telling you, they're going to take it. She goes, they better not. I said, I'm telling you, I promise you, they're going to take that dog. She said, they better not. I said, okay. We went back about a week later. Guess what? The dog is gone. Gone, bye-bye. The water hadn't been high. And in the middle, there was sand in the middle right there where we drove the side-by-side over because it was close to the creek, so there was a pile of sand there. On top of that sand was a rock made of iron and sand mixture that was in the shape of a pyramid, and they had grooved lines from the pointy front to the back, pointing where the dog was. She goes, what's that? I said, that's your present. She goes, what? I said, you see where it's pointing? Yeah, where my dog was. I said, that is your gift for the dog. If they take something of value, they think you value it, or they think it's a value, they're going to give you something in return for it. This rock with this engraving on it is your present from them for the dog. She goes, I want my dog back. I said, well, it's done. It's done. Your dog's gone. You can forget about that. That was one of the most intriguing ones that we had. Another one that was totally beautiful. When it was a nursery site, they would look in the window and watch the TV. Now, down below the TV, I had a picture frame made with all the arrows I found when I was growing up. They were on that picture frame, right on the bottom of the fireplace. We got where the TV is on the mantle above the fireplace. So it was on the left side of the fireplace. so they could see it when they look in the window. The window's a bay window. Well, one day we came back to the house from work, and there on the banister of the back deck, guess what it is? It is a beautiful quartz rock with an inclusion, an orange inclusion in it in the middle, like where the heart would be. And it was in the shape of an arrowhead. Now, it was not an arrowhead. It was not made by Indians. There were no grooves or chips in it, but the shape of it was the shape of an arrowhead. And it was left there for us. I washed it off, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen because it was made of quartz. But I call that my ET. That's my ET rock because the ET had the heart that glowed. So that little thing in the middle reminded me of the heart glow. So that was my ET rock they gave us as a gift for watching the TV. But that's not the only one they gave us when they were looking in the window. The second thing they gave us was a sandstone rock. Now, every Thanksgiving, we put up our Christmas tree and decorate it and everything. Then we take it down the week after Christmas. So we had our Christmas tree up, and it was about 2 weeks after the Christmas tree was up. There was a sandstone rock. And I don't know how they do this stuff that they're doing. I have no clue. They make some of the most beautiful gifts with no tools, or at least it may be with rocks that are harder that they found, or I don't know how they do it. But they had made grooves in it, and it looked like a Christmas tree. And they left it on the banister for us. They were letting us know that they loved our Christmas tree. It was one of the other beautiful rocks that they left us for looking in the tree. The thing that they left us the most, though, was quartz. And it was really neat because I don't know where they're getting the quartz from, but there's quartz here. It's not in bunches anywhere, but they're encased in rock, and then they break them open. I don't know if they're breaking them with another rock on top of the rock or if they're doing it with their hands. I don't know how they're doing it. Every quartz that they've given us, they've broken open. They put some in our front yard. They put some on our back deck. They put some down at the gifting station. They put some over by the pump that's pumping water into the pond. But they've given us a lot of quartz. So quartz must be really special to them. And a lot of people find quartz in the areas where they are. So some people say it's an energy source for them. I'm not sure about that, but I know that they really love quartz, and they gift it to us a lot. The next thing is footprints. Now, this isn't footprints on the ground. They have taken rocks and made them the shape of a footprint. They've done two of them. One of them actually has like a base, so when you sit on the table, it kind of stands up a little bit, like you would have a picture that's leaning, standing up on something. It's kind of made that way, and it's got a footprint where they've rubbed the outline down around it and given it to us. That one to me is one of the most amazing ones because they ground the bottom down to make the base. They ground the top down to make the shape of the footprint. Another one, the whole rock is the shape of a foot, and it actually has a line on it that makes me think it's the mid-tarsal break on it. And that one was really crazy because I found it and several others together. I hadn't put any food out for quite a while, and as I went to put something out, I started on the trail and I saw these two little bitty cardinal feathers where each of the tires go, and it was pointing. And there's only two feathers. There wasn't like one was all torn up. There were two feathers. There was one in one track and one in where the other wheel is, and they're all pointing down that trail. And what I found is right there when they give us a gift, it's out. It's on top, just laying on top of the ground. All the others have been not pushed down into the ground, but this was just laying on top of the ground. I think they were trying to bribe me this time to give them more food because there was usually I only get one gift at a time, but this time there were 5 gifts there. There were the 2 little feathers from the cardinal. There was a huge piece of quartz that had been broken right there and given to me. There was one that was the perfect shape of a footprint with what looks like the mid-tarsal break going across it. And then there was another rock that was in the shape of something. I hadn't figured out what it was. It looks weird, but I could tell it had been the rock had been manipulated. Something had ground it down to make it that shape. So I think that and that happened this year. That hadn't been too long ago. And I think that they did that so that we would give them some more food. So also, they've given me a lot of rocks that are grooved on the side as if somebody had used it as a pulley to put a rope on it and to pull things up it. It's grooved on the side of the rock on all sides. But it can't be a rope that did it because when I was investigating and looking at it, trying to figure out how is this made, what could it be used for, I couldn't ever figure it out. But I know it wasn't a rope because the rope is going to groove in the corners that take the most stress from a rope or whatever's doing it down further than the others. And it wasn't. It wasn't down further. It was actually out a little bit more than the others. So it wasn't that. I don't know. But I can tell you it makes a really good handhold. When I hold those rocks, and some of them are in the shape of a triangle, like you could use it to hit something with. Maybe break something open. Maybe they could hold it in their hand, hit something on the back, break its back. I'm not sure what it was made for, but they've left me several of those. And I'm still, it's one of those things, still trying to figure out exactly what they use it for, how they did it. Sometimes these things just stump you. I mean, even when you figure out one thing, it opens up 3 or 4 more questions. They always say that's the rabbit hole. When you've been around them as long as I have, it's not a rabbit hole. I promise you it's not a rabbit hole. It's an anthill. There is so many more tunnels to an anthill than to a rabbit hole that is crazy, but that makes me feel I'm in an anthill because I have so many questions that are just sitting there trying to figure out the answers to. Somebody one time asked me, said, if I was going out camping, what can I do to attract them so maybe we could see one on the thermal? I said, well, the 2 things that really weren't the best is have a campfire, have kids or women sitting there talking and laughing. It seems like the laughter of kids and women attract them to come look, see what's going on. Or music. Now, I found out the ones here, they really love music. But the thing about the music is they don't like the hard rock or anything like that. They like the, trying to think, the harmony type music. Like the favorite they like here is Home Free. It's an a cappella band, but they do have a beatboxer. They blend in so well, but the beatboxer sounds sometimes a little bit like a tree knock, and it seems to bring them in. In fact, when it was a nursery site, when I would play some on the back porch late at night, I could go the next morning on some of the trails at the edge of the trees, and I know I can find tracks there. And I'd go look. Sure enough, there'd be tracks there where one was standing that night listening. They love the music, and I tell you, there's two things I can tell you that happened to me that let me know for sure they love music. One thing is, one night I played some on the back porch and left it there till about midnight, and then I went to bed. About 2:30 in the morning, I went to the bathroom, and I was gonna open my iPad to listen to a football podcast, and I went and hit the podcast, and it was still hooked up to the speaker. I mean, it never turned the speaker off, so it was still hooked up to the speaker, and it started playing the podcast. Well, all of a sudden, no, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Well, as soon as I opened it up, some of the music started playing because it was still on that one. So it started playing a song, and I did listen to the rest of that song because I liked that song. But then after that, that's when I went to the podcast. All of a sudden, right there by our back porch, right in front of where we park, we have these huge trash cans. All of a sudden, I hear bam on one of the trash cans. It actually dented the top end. That's how hard the hit was. I said, uh-oh, it wants more music. So then I put on some more music and just let it go because I knew that was saying, I don't like your podcast. I want the music. So it was kind of a funny thing that I got the message and I let them listen to, as long as the battery was working on the speaker, they heard music for the rest of the night. But that was really funny. They have ways to let me know things, and I'm able to pick up on a lot of it. Do I pick up on all of it? No. I don't think anybody can pick up on all of it. But I pick up on a lot of it. Now, the second thing that I know, how I know they like music, was we had some relatives coming into town. And we were trying to clean up. Me and my wife were trying to clean up the living room, the kitchen, stuff like that. So we turned on some country music on the TV to listen to while we were cleaning everything up. On YouTube, in between songs, there's a pause. All of a sudden, there was a pause, and on our front door starts going tap, 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 tap. And I could tell it was a fingernail. I knew what it was. It was during the nursery time. It was either a juvenile or a young Bigfoot tapping on the door. Another song came on. When it was finished, when there was no sound, tap, 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 tap. It was almost like it was saying, play more music, play more music, and play more music. And we did for a long time, and we just laughed. We just kept laughing. We didn't try to go look. We just kept laughing because every time the song would stop, and it'd start tapping again. And it did that for about 6 or 7 songs, and it was absolutely hilarious because it wanted to hear more songs so bad. But and one of the other things though, we put a xylophone. We've tried all kind of things, gifting them just to see what they would do with it. We put a xylophone down there one time it's got the little wood stick where you hit the different panels and it makes noise. We put a xylophone down there one time, and the xylophone makes really loud sound. And I was hoping that I could hear them from the house sometime if one was down there playing with it. Well, evidently, an older one or a movie critic Bigfoot didn't like the xylophone. It took the little wooden stick, and then the big plastic containers of food was in. It took one of those, turned it upside down on the xylophone so none of them could hit it unless they took that off. Of course, they already took the stick, so you'd have to tap it with your fingernail or something. But I think it did not want the young ones playing on it so that others could hear the sound and know that they're down there. But I thought that was funny because I always said, well, we got a movie critic here. And my wife was the last one that hit it. So maybe she didn't like the tune she was playing or something. But anyway, they turned it upside down right on top of the xylophone so nobody could play it again. Sometimes people ask me, what's the easiest way to keep them away from your house if you think you have them around? So it's simple. Cheapest and most inexpensive is put trail cameras around your house. They'll avoid them. Trail cameras, they can see the infrared. They're going to stay away from it. They're not going to get in the infrared. And I said the second thing is light it up. Take everything and light it up. Put lights out there. It's going to cost a little bit more money, but they will. They don't like to go in the lights at night. And I have an example of that. I was telling you how they get the fruit off the trees all the time. And we built a pad in the backyard with a little fire pit in the middle of it. And we had lights that would light it up. One of the lights lit up their favorite peach tree. And one year it was just loaded with peaches. I'm talking about it probably had 80 to 100 peaches on that one by itself, and it was a young tree still. All of a sudden, one day on Wednesday, the middle of the week, I go out there. This light pole is 12 to 15 foot tall. The light had been pointed, instead of out to light up, the whole thing pointed straight down at the ground. It had been turned to where it's straight down at the ground. So the guy that put it up there came over and I said, "Hey, let me ask you something. That light up there, could wind or something have blown that down?" He goes, "Heck no." He said the only way that could get turned is if you loosen it up and turn it, or if it hits the ground and turns it. He said that thing's got more force that a hurricane force winds wouldn't turn it. That's the only one that was turned. It was turned down to the ground so it wouldn't shine out there where that peach tree is, so we wouldn't see him out there, or it wouldn't hurt his eyes one way or the other. But that light got turned straight down to the ground. And I thought that was just crazy. Oh, and here's something else strange that happened about that tree. I went there one time, and usually when they take the peaches, they're just gone. No pits, no nothing. They're just totally gone. And I have deer netting around it with the T-post holding it up 6 foot high. And then I've got fabric on the ground so that the grass can't get up and take all the nutrients from the tree. But on this one time, I saw 10 peach pits down on the ground in it. And it was fresh. It was made the night before. It was not discolored at all. It was still, but all the pulp was sucked out. No ants ever get on that tree, but it was just all gone. So I'm driving by it, and I see them there, and I stop and show them to my wife, and she goes, "Wow, that's weird. We've never had that happen before." Said, "No, we hadn't had that happen before. I think they're letting me know that they want some more. They want to plant another one of these trees. They like this peach tree because we had different type flavored peaches." And I said, "I need to get over there," because what I did was I took the label of a type tree off and put it and zip tied it around the T-post. So if I ever liked one more than the other, I could see which one it was to buy more of that type. Well, I said, "I need to go get that thing and look at it so I can see what type it is so I can order a tree." Because I don't know if you've messed around with peach pits trying to grow them. There's a lot of work in trying to grow a peach tree from a pit. And I wasn't going to go through that. I buy another tree. I didn't go over there though. And I just told my wife, I said, "I need to go over there and get that tag off to see what kind of peach tree that is." But we didn't do it. I said, "I'll come back and get it later," which I never did. The next weekend, we're driving around the trail. All of a sudden, there was grass in the middle of, right beside that peach tree, there was grass in the middle of the road, a big clump of grass. And on top of that grass is the tag for the peach tree. Now, you may say, wind blew it there. Well, wind blows the other direction typically, and we hadn't had anything weird come from any direction. So that rules the possibility of that out somewhat. But then I said, I wonder if it just got, if somehow it just blew off. Let me go check the other trees. Every one of the other trees still had the label on the tree of the type it was, exactly where I put it, exactly like the other one was. And this thing, the zip tie, was still over there on the post, and it had been ripped through the tag. And when it got pulled off, it ripped it through the tag. It was laying on top of that for me to see it. I was like, well, I guess I know what kind it is now, so I have to plant another one for them. So I don't know what else would have pulled it off and ripped it off and put it right on top of this grass to make sure I saw it, but weird stuff like that happens around here all the time. As a matter of fact, here, my saying is, the unusual is the usual. All kind of strangeness happens around here, and we've just grown accustomed to it. Another thing people ask me, have you ever been growled at? You would think with the relationship we have built with this group that I wouldn't have been growled at, but I have. I've been growled at twice. And I will tell you the events that happened there. One time my wife had some friends over, and they had heard about the Bigfoot. Because they were either husbands, wives, or related to relatives that have seen footprints or stuff like that. And my wife wanted me to take them to show them some footprints. I didn't really want to do that, but I knew that I'd be in the doghouse if I didn't. So I said, okay. The first trip, I took three people down to the pond, and the water was extremely low on the pond. So the mud was exposed, and there was 2 perfect footprints sunk in the mud. And I know that they tried to hide it because they broke some little branches into little bitty pieces and put over top of it to try to hide it. And then they put some on the other dirt around it just to try to hide it. But it was so deep in the mud that it was so clear to see that you couldn't hide it. So they were amazed by it. They were like, look at this footprint. This is amazing. Look how deep it is. It's crazy. I said, yeah, and see, they were trying to hide it too. And about that time, I know a place where one stays down there. It's about 25 to 30 yards away. They may not stay there all the time, but I know it stays there sometime. I heard a branch break. No, I'm sorry. That wasn't a branch break. I heard a dog bark behind that hill. They turned around and looked, and they said, you got dogs down here? I said, no. I said, it may be just one running through the woods, but I knew what it was because I knew where that one stayed. That one stayed and has broken branches at us 2 or 3 times from behind that hill. And so that's how I know it probably stays there, because those have been in the daytime and it's not going to be there all those times. So I think they have a structure or something built over there and that one stays there. But it barked at us. So then I got them loaded up, went back to the house. She had 2 more people wanted to go, so I took them and let them see the print too. All of a sudden, it barked twice from over there. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm getting in trouble. Thinking it to myself. Got them loaded up, went back, and then there was one last guy that wanted to go. And I took him to the gifting station. I was not going to go back to the pond again. And at the gifting station, this was when the nursery site again, nursery time, there was a baby Bigfoot footprint down there, a perfect print. You could see the heel, you could see the toes, you could see everything on it. And I showed it to him. It was 4.5 inches long. He was amazed. He said, "How can anybody say that these things aren't real? How can anybody?" He said, "That is definitely a human shaped footprint, but it looks weird because it's so wide." I said, I know. And about that time, across the creek, one growled at me. He didn't hear it, luckily, because he was talking about how perfect the print was and looking at the heels, looking at the toes, and said this is the left foot, going into all kind of detail on it. So he didn't hear it, but I did. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. Because they don't play when it comes to their babies. They protect their young like we protect our young. So that one growled at me. That was the first one. I left and never went and did that stuff again because, once you start learning what they don't want you to do, if you're trying to build trust and respect with them, you don't do it again. You basically, what they're saying is, this is a no-no. This is a red line for us. Don't do it. And so if you don't do it, if you understand and you don't do it, it builds up that trust and respect with them. And that's how you build a relationship with them. That's one of the things you have to figure out how to do. The the other time I got growled at was down at the gifting station. At the gifting station, I went down there and put stuff out. All of a sudden, I heard one down there growl. Oh, there was a ton of prints that day. It was taking me longer that day because there was a ton of prints down there. And I'd taken and I was measuring them because I like to keep up with what's here. This was with the nursery, and the nursery set up so that each baby has a juvenile with it. And then there's one adult mom over the whole thing. And then there is an extra juvenile or two as a day watcher or a fill in, I guess. But each baby has a juvenile traveling with it, like a companion, to make sure that everything goes good. But I was taking so long because there were so many prints down there. One of them growled at me. And I said, no, don't be growling at me. The deal is, y'all show me footprints and I put food down here. Don't be growling at me. And it growled again one more time. I said, no, you know better than that. And so I left. And I let him know. I said, I'm leaving, so you can come get something to eat now. I left. Then something very strange happened the next weekend. I go back down there to put more out the next weekend. And I'm doing all the footprints again because there's a bunch of footprints down there. And I'm just measuring them to see which ones they were and all like that to make sure exactly how many is down here. Then all of a sudden I hear a limb break, the exact same spot to where I heard the growl come from. And I just laughed to myself and I said, all right, at least you didn't growl. And then he broke another one after I said that. And I said, okay, I'll let you know when I'm leaving. And I let him know. And he'd never done that again after that. But I guess he learned that he didn't need to be growling at me, but he sure was going to let me know he was there ready to eat. So all that kind of stuff happens just so much. I mean, it's crazy. When I go down to the gifting station, the majority of the time, it is so quiet. You may hear a bird way off in the distance, but right there around it is so quiet that if you only hear a bird in the distance, your ears just start straining to hear sounds because there's just nothing there. It's like all the sound is absorbed and there's just nothing there. It's crazy. But I understand that they're down in that area, so I know it's coming from them. When you've been around them as long as I have, all of a sudden you start realizing that when you were a kid you start getting flashbacks because you learn so much about them that you start getting flashbacks from a kid. And that, let me give you an example. I used to hunt all the time when I was a kid. Now I don't hunt here now because my dad always taught me if you kill it, you got to eat it. If you're not going to eat it, don't kill it. There's a life, just like a human life. Don't kill something unless you're going to use it for food. So here, my wife would never eat any of it. She's not a vegetarian, but she loves wildlife like I do. And if I told her she's eating a deer burger, she would probably throw up. And it's not because of the taste, it's only because, she thinks of it as a deer. But anyway, so I don't hunt, but I still love seeing them. That's why I still put food out for the deer and the birds and all that stuff. I love hearing the bird calls in the morning and off the back porch. But anyway, if you had a flashback as a kid, I heard a tree knock one day and I'm sitting on the back porch and I'm like, I've heard that as a kid. I've been up in a tree stand almost at dark, 3/4 of a mile away from that tree stand. There's a big, huge swamp. And I heard uh, two tree knocks synchronized, bam, bam. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't think anything about a Bigfoot then. So in my mind, I'm just like, it's a hunter trying to repair a tree stand. But now I look back on it and I heard that like 4 times, at least two. But I think I heard it 4 times as a kid. And it was all in that swamp area. And I started thinking back. First off, if you're a hunter, and I didn't know anything about it, but if you're a hunter, you're not going to fix a tree stand at the prime time to hunt. You're going to do it middle of the day or before the season. Second thing is when you're hitting a nail, you're going to hit it, and as you get it closer to being, the frequency and the tapping is going to change, and it's going to be lighter, but it's going to be more often to make sure to finish it all the way in. And these were always loud, and they only did 1 or 2 at a time. So I'm thinking back on it now, I'm like, that was not a hunter. That was one of them down there. Then the one that really gets me is I was in the tree stand one time and was looking down this bottom and up the other side, and I could see all the way up to the fence. Now I helped my dad put that fence in there. I know that the posts on it are 4 foot tall, and I see this what I think is a person walking by it, but it was hunting season. Everybody around there knows to wear orange. This was brown from top to bottom. This had no orange on. This thing was not carrying a gun, but I'm just thinking it's a trespasser. In my mind as a kid, because I didn't know anything about Bigfoot, I'm thinking this is a trespasser. But now I look back on it, and my dad actually called the neighbors. I told him what I saw. He actually called the neighbors, and he never could see. Um, all the neighbors said they were over there, but this thing was twice as tall as the post, which means it would have been 8 foot tall. And I started thinking about that, and there was a bunch of pine trees, and then there was the field with a gate, and I would always climb the gate to go to the other side. And I was waiting for him to come out in that big field at the gate and cross over, and it never did. It never got over into there and crossed at the gate, which means it had to cross the fence where those pines were. But yet, this thing was twice the height of post that we put in the ground that I know good and well was 4 foot tall. So, and it looked really big from where I was at, but of course, at that age, I was probably 16, 15, 16. You really don't have, at that distance, you really don't have you're not really able to register size, because it wasn't until I went back and that thought came up in my head about it, I was able to figure out, wait, that thing was twice as tall as that post. Those posts were 4 foot, 4 plus 4 is 8. So it wasn't until then I realized that was one of them coming up, and there was a trail up there that deer would take coming up right next to that fence, and it was a Bigfoot coming up there. Now, do I call that a sighting now? No, because I didn't know it then. And my parameters I always go by to prove whether it is or not. I have to see hair or face, one or the other, and know 100% that it's no other animal. I know it wasn't any other animal, but I couldn't see hair nor face, even though it was all one color from bottom to top. So it's funny how these things come up from your past, and you think about them and you realize I was around them when I was a kid and just didn't know about it. As a matter of fact, I've had a couple of hunters that I've talked to, and I always like to ask them, do you believe in Bigfoot? Of course, they all say no. Never seen one. Nope, don't believe in them. And then I ask them, have you ever heard a tree knock? Something that sounds like a baseball bat hitting a tree. I've had 3 or 4 of them say, oh, yeah, I've heard that out there. It must be a neighbor putting a fence up or doing something. I said, are you sure? I said, did he hit a bunch of times? No, only a couple, 2 or 3. And it's so funny because you ask the hunters that, and now I ask the hunters that, and I hear that, and I don't try to tell them that it was a Bigfoot because of the fact that they're not going to believe you anyway because they've got their mind made up just like I did as a kid. But yet, by what they're telling me, I know that they've been around them and didn't realize it. It's just absolutely crazy. Now, the ones here, they like to do a lot of stuff with wood. They like to make a lot of wood structures or things with vines. They like to make a lot of X's. They like to bend trees. And when they bend a tree, they'll take a pine tree or a real skinny tree, bend it over, and they'll put either a couple of old logs on top of it or a huge river rock on top of it to hold it down. Then I've seen hides made with those. Then they take brush and stand up on the side of it where the arch is. It's like the spine holding it up. They take and put that all in on there on each side. They leave a gap on whichever side they're going to go in. Sometimes they leave a little gap on both sides, and they make a hide like that. They made 2 down by the gifting station when I started putting nutter butters down there because they wanted the nutter butters. That's the thing that they liked the most. They put 2 right across the creek. It's about 50 yards from the gifting station. So whenever I'd get stuff put out, sometimes I'd hear them walking to the creek even before I get them all done so they can be the first ones there. And I actually got a picture of one of the hides one time, and I posted it, and I had somebody say, did you see the face in there? I said, no, I didn't see a face. And sure enough, I go look, and there's this round little face looking at me, and it looks like a sort of like a mix between a human and a chimpanzee, and it sure looks like it's got a frown on it. But what's really weird about that is it never used that hide again. It's like once they knew that I'd seen them, they don't use that hide anymore. Even though they trust me, they don't use it anymore. I don't know if it's a reaction to me getting a picture of it or what exactly it was, but they don't use it anymore at all. They actually, the ones here, kind of treat us like distant relatives. They actually protect the house. They've warned us of danger. If there's somebody on our back porch that's only one person and they don't know who it is, they will do stuff like break a huge limb off a tree right over there in the woods next to them, or they will stomp in the woods going back and forth 2 or 3 times to try to scare them. I had one guy that was fixing the porch one time, and he was He was putting new flooring on the porch, on the back porch, and he called me. He says, "Hey, got a question for you. Is there anything here I need to know about?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "There is no wind here at all. I'm here by myself, and something over there in the woods just snapped a tree, just broke a tree, came crashing down." I said, "Oh, I don't worry about it. Just don't go in the woods. You'll be fine." But what evidently, come to find out after I talked to him further, he was walking, the wood was in between where he was working and the tree line, and they had just dropped it. So he was going to look at the wood towards the tree line, and it broke it. Now, when I went and looked, it wasn't a tree that broke. About 50 foot up in a huge oak tree, a huge oak limb was broken off of it that fell to the ground. So it was that, and it wasn't actually the tree. I've actually got a lady that watches my mom. My mom's at home with me. She's bedridden right now, and so she comes and helps when I'm at work. And she'll go to the back porch sometimes, and she's already told me twice in the last 2 weeks something was running back and forth through the woods. And then she took one of the dogs for a walk, and something broke a limb down in the tree, down in the where the trees were down by the creek, broke a big branch. And she said, Cookie, our little dog, he ran back to the door to the house, and then the other one was just staring down there, just staring, not moving. Alaskan Husky. She said when Cookie took off running, she said it took me a while to get the other one to turn, but we got back. I don't know what it was, but something broke a branch down there. And I asked her, I said, was it windy? She said, no, it was no wind. Something broke that branch. I said, did you hear it hit the ground? She said, no, I never heard it hit the ground, but I heard the break. I said, okay. So anyway, she was by herself, and she was holding the dogs, and they were just trying to let them know they're watching. I think that's funny and unique. You can't get a guard dog any better than a Bigfoot guard in your house. At least I don't think so. Maybe you can, but I don't think so. But it's really neat that they do that. Some people have asked me if I heard them talking back and forth, and the answer to that is yes. I've heard that 2 different times. I've heard 2 of them. Me and my wife was coming from the pond one time, and I heard sounded like somebody was talking on our property as we were driving back, and it was so loud you could actually hear it over the side by side. And I said, "Wait a second, stop. We're going to stop. Turn it up. Turn the engine off." We turned it off, and you can hear them talking, but it's not in a language you can understand. But after listening to the samurai chatter, it sounded somewhat like that. But we we listened to it for about 10 minutes. I tried to record it on my phone, but it wouldn't pick it up because the iPhones are terrible about picking up sounds at a distance. It'll pick up things closer and magnify it louder. The ones at the distance, it doesn't pick up good. So it didn't pick it up good, but I heard them. Me and my wife heard them. And then I had twins that were coming to the gifting station one time when I was putting stuff out, and they were talking back and forth to each other. They were coming down a fence, and then the fence makes a 90-degree turn right into the gifting station. And I wanted to record it. So I snuck in the woods, turned my phone on because I knew exactly it was coming down that fence, and then it's going to make a turn right to the gifting station. When they got about 20 yards from the corner, there evidently was one in a tree behind me about 20 yards. It made a tree knock so loud because I had my phone on, the phone even muted it because it was such a volume, it was so loud that it muted it. I thought that was crazy. But they stopped, and I realized that that was one of their red lines, which I knew it already was. But it wasn't like I was going trying to get a picture. I was just trying to record them talking back and forth. And I thought that was one of the neatest things until I got busted. And I left, and it hadn't happened again where I've heard them talking, but I have not tried to invade their territory, and like that. And that's not wanting their territory. It was just they don't want you to go in there and mess with their little ones. And those were two babies that had been there for about 4 or 5 months that were talking to each other. So I understand. I wouldn't want anybody sneaking into the house trying to get close to my babies either. So I understand. Now, is there any questions at all? Miguel, do you have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell me what your son saw when he was driving? Did he share any details on the description of the creatures?
He didn't. He just said they were on all four. And he said they were coming up through the bottom. And he said they definitely was not a hog. It was no animal I'd ever seen. He said, and he had seen the one down there, and he said, I thought it could have been two Bigfoot on all fours. And, but it was so dark down there because it dips down and it's so deep. The only way he even got a chance to glimpse it is because he was turning, he was going into the other lane to make the turn into our driveway. That's how he saw them. And then he went on past them to turn around so he'd be on that side of the road so he could get a better look at them. But when he did, and he crossed that bridge and he saw that one standing up, he didn't take his eyes off that one. He didn't want to take any chance of. He was looking at that one. He wasn't worried about the other two then. So he didn't tell me, but he just said he didn't say it was a monster, but basically the feeling I got from him was he thought that thing was so big, he didn't want nothing to do with that thing. It was that big. It was huge. He said it was huge. He said, I don't know how tall it was. It's standing down there, but it was taller than my car from down there off the road.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's
that's several
incredible.
feet too.
Yeah. How old was your son when that happened?
21, 20, 21. So he wasn't young. I mean, he had seen the one down here already at the house.
Mhm.
So he had already seen one. He knew what they were. He's heard them tree knock and stuff like that, and he's aware that they're here. But he was either 20 or 21. He went to college for 2 years after school, and then he came back and started working. So it's probably 21 or 22.
Yeah. And how did your wife react after seeing the figure through the thermal device?
Well, she couldn't figure out what it was. That's the reason why she called Sheila down there, because here's this big hot thing, but then there's this red stuff in front too. So it all looked like one mass that was like melting onto the ground. And then when Sheila saw it, um, she's like, "No, that's one of those." But they took pictures of it with the thermal. And when I got it and looked at it, I said, "Yeah, it was peeing on the ground." I said, "You can see this. You got a tree right here, and it's peeing at the base of this tree." So what it was doing was it was standing down there and then remarking its territory, peeing on the ground. And so she was very happy because not only her and Sheila, but two other people came down there because he stood there for a while, like as if to say, "This is my territory." But he was about 40 yards away down in a bottom. So she was excited that she got it though. I mean, because it was anything like that on a thermal that you know what it is and can figure it out. It's amazing. And they do have black bear, but black bear don't stand up, not in one spot for 10 to 15 minutes. And this thing was just standing down there looking at them. And then um, when one person handed it to somebody else and looked, it was gone. And then they handed it back to the person that had seen it, and they looked, and sure enough, it was gone, but you could still see the red spot on the ground.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to that have had experiences on their property, and they're the only ones who experience the activity, and their other family members don't see or hear anything at all. And it's pretty amazing that you, your wife, your son, and other family members have experienced things on the property. And that helps validate what you've experienced. And I'm sure you guys have built a connection over time sharing these experiences with one another.
We really have, as a matter of fact. Nobody at work, everybody knows I don't lie anyway, but everybody at work knows me and knows about them and stuff like that. And they always come in there and they'll say, "Hey, have you ever heard this? I heard this about them." And I tell them what I've either seen or heard. Most of the time, I've seen something that relates to what they're talking about or the same type thing. But when people do that, I learn from it because I want to compare what I'm seeing here to what other people are seeing other places. But that's why I like to, really, it's a big disservice is done to people if you really look at the preponderance of evidence over time. I don't know how you can't believe that they're real. I mean, this goes all the way back to the writing of the Gilgamesh or whatever it's called. 4,000 years ago, they were writing about these beings being there. There's stuff in the Bible. There's stuff in the, um, what is the cathedral where the thing is written, drawn on there by Michelangelo? Sistine Chapel. Sistine Chapel has a picture of it in there where Michelangelo drew a picture of two in a cave with the young one. All the Native Americans said they'd been here a long time before them. They've drawn along caves with other animals that are real. The footprints, I mean, you go all the way back, and there's evidence all the way back in every continent. Um, it's amazing. Even the Indian Army found a Yeti footprint, and had a stride, I believe, of 8 feet, and it was 32 inches long, and it was, oh, I don't know, it was like 12 or 14 inches wide, and you could see the whole trackway in the snow. And them measuring it, the whole Indian Army found it, ran across it doing maneuvers. And there's only one set of tracks, you know? So if you look at the preponderance of evidence with an open mind, and people think nowadays, they think, well, it's because somebody's trying to make money. Somebody's trying to be famous. Somebody's trying to do this, sell jerky, whatever. No, these people back then, they had nothing to gain from it. They had nothing to gain from telling people about it or drawing them on cave walls, or they just don't. So and it's in almost all the continents. So the preponderance of the evidence, if you're open minded and you really study it and look at it, I don't know how you can't say there's not something to it. To me, I didn't, I was 50-50 from as a kid because of all the people, all the witnesses. I was 50-50 as a kid, but now when I really look back and look at things, I mean, even Washington State has a state thing showing where they are and how to avoid them and stuff from the engineering department, I think it was from. So they even put that out there from Washington State. So I don't know. I've found out there's only certain people that you can convince that there's a chance that it's real. And it's usually people that are very inquisitive and that are open minded. People that go on just, I don't know, I think you have to be inquisitive and open minded to look at the whole picture and see what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did you start gifting in the first place? And is there anything you wish you had done differently?
Oh, we did a bunch of stuff wrong, but I didn't know it at the time until they let me know it was wrong. For example, the first good footprint I had that I could make a plaster cast off, I went to make a casting of it. It was the juvenile that was 9.5 inches long, and it was real narrow and only had 4 toes. It was real wet, so I left it down at the pond on it. Well, the next 2 days later, I went to. We were putting apples on the tree then. I went down there, and where the apples were on the tree, I saw a perfect set of toe prints there, right there by the fence. And I said, "Man, this is the best toe prints I've seen from an adult." And then, so, all right, so I'll tell. Let me tell that entire event. So we had done that, made that casting. 2 days later, I go down there, right by the stump feeder. I'd seen where a hawk had killed a dove, and I've always taken pictures of that because it's so unique. The way they scrape the feathers off, and then take the kill off. And then I go down there and I look, and the apples were gone, and I see these perfect toe prints, but it's getting a little dark because I'm in the woods now. I take a picture of these perfect toe prints, and I'm excited because toe prints to me are the hardest to get. I think when they step, their heel hits first, and then their toes are the last thing. But I think their toes are much more flexible than ours. Plus, I think their pad on the bottom is thicker than ours, so their toes are up higher off the ground. Just what I think from the prints I've seen. But so I took a picture of it, and then I took another because I knew it was getting dark and to see if it would flash, and it did. It flashed. Then I took a third one just to make sure I got it, and it flashed again. Then I took a picture of the apples. Now, the whole time I'm down there, I feel like I'm being watched. I feel like something is looking at me the whole time. So I go out into the little field area where we have the gifting station. It's not a field, it's just an opening. And so I'm going to do a whoop, but I'm going to put my phone on video so that I can try to pick up any sounds that comes if anything responds to me. So I can't remember exactly what I made. Maybe I made a whoop or something. Nothing ever responded back. So then I'm heading back from the other side of it towards the stump feeder, and I see a perfect heel print. So I take a picture of that perfect heel print. Then when I get back to the gifting station, I had taken a picture of the feathers on the ground, but I didn't look in the marble plate, and they had made some kind of a picture in it, and I took a picture of the way they did the marbles. So I got back to the house and told my wife, I said, "Look at this. This is the best pictures I've ever seen of toes and the best, great heel print picture." She said, "Okay." So I get my phone out and I said, "Okay, here's the feathers. Here's the apples." I said, "Wait a second. Here's the feathers. Here's the apples." I said, I had three pictures. I had three pictures of toe prints. They're not here. What's going on? They're not here. Then I switched it again. There was where I've had the recording for me doing the call. Then I do it again, and there's a picture of the stuff that they made with the marbles. The hill picture is gone. It's not there. What the heck's going on? I'm not good with electronics, so I go back, say, "Here, did something get erased? Can you tell me what happened?" She looks through it. She can't find anything, but those four pictures are missing. The ones I took of the toe prints, the one I took of the heel print is missing. Nothing else. All the others are in there. weird. I mean, I took 3 pictures of the same thing. So this was the day before my birthday. On my birthday, I like to sleep in. The way I pamper myself is I sleep in half the day. Don't try to get me up till noon. If I get up on my own, I do. I'm sleeping till noon. That's my birthday present to myself. Always has been. So the next morning, it was going to start raining at 9 in the morning, and I'm like, dang it, I'm going to get these pictures. I'm going to get these pictures. So I set my alarm for 8. Got up, went down there. I go down there to where the apples are on the tree. One of them was gone. The other one was still there. I don't know why they didn't get 2 of them. I know that one wouldn't fill it up. I can't find the toe prints. They're not there. I even got my phone to go back to look at the picture to see where it was before I realized the reason I'm there, you dummy, is because you couldn't find them the first time. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking around. Then I can see just a little bit, and leaves have been brushed over it. And I moved some of the leaves, but I could see like it looked like it had been brushed. They weren't there. They got covered up. Then I go out to where the heel print was. Then I could really see it because they didn't have that many leaves out there. They had taken a branch and they had brushed it out. There was no heel print, but you could clearly see where the brushings were to brush it out. So then I started thinking about what they had done. And they were basically giving me a message saying, we don't want you to take plaster casts of our prints. And as a matter of fact, for about another week, you couldn't find any prints anywhere. And at that time, they were leaving their prints. They didn't leave any prints anywhere. They were sending me a message: don't take castings of our footprints. And I don't now. Of course, they've started avoiding anything soft now to put their footprint in, unless it's pure accident. In fact, when they're going up and down the creek, most of them can walk up and down the creek and you can't see them because you got 8 to 12 foot banks. But they walk in the water. They don't walk on the dirt on the side. They walk in the water. So, as a matter of fact, the one print I saw down there near the bridge, it was in the middle of the creek. It just happened to be where the dirt was that was high enough to be out where that footprint was. And I realized that they're walking down the middle of that creek. They're not walking where it's got sand and all at. So, I mean, things like this, the unusual is the usual. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, it really is. I'll tell you another very neat experience that happened to me. One day I was like going to the side by side. I don't know what I was getting. I was going to get something out of it. I think I left a shirt or a hat or something in. I can't remember exactly now why I was going to the side by side. But I had left some food. Sometimes if I have too much food and I put it in the gifting area and I leave any overflow back in the back of the side by side. Well, this day the barn door, the rollers were messed up on it. Actually, one of the wires had broken, so I had it tied open. But I had some stuff left in the back. I can't remember exactly what all was in there. I didn't do an inventory or anything. But I go back there, and there is a rock. They had gifted me a quartz rock, busted open, right there beside the food. Now, all the food wasn't gone. There was still some food in there. But there was that rock there beside it. So I'm like, why is this rock here? I said, I bet they took some food out of this and they gifted me that rock, for the food. Then I started thinking, well, let me go get what I've got and go ahead and put it out for them. And I go out, and it was so quiet in my backyard, and that's usually where all the birds are. It was so quiet. It was crazy. I get down next to the gifting station, I hear two doves cooing really loud. And I mean, louder than I've ever heard dove coo before. And I've never heard dove down there at all. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if that's two that are down here and they are happy and excited because I'm putting stuff out because I hadn't put anything out in a while. And I went ahead and put it out. I went back to the house. Later on that night, it was probably 9:30 or 10. Me and my son are in the living room watching a movie. All of a sudden, they have a little trail they walk right behind the bathroom window in our bathroom. In fact, they've tapped on it sometimes while I'm using the bathroom. And I just say, "Hey, how you doing?" Then they stop. But anyway, there's a little trail back there. All of a sudden, I said, "Do you hear that?" He goes, "Yeah, I do. It's doves cooing." I said, "Doves do not coo at night." I said, "That is right behind the bathroom. It's louder than the TV that we had on loud. If you put a straight line to where it would have been, it was in a straight line. It would have been 7, 8 yards through the wall. But you could hear the doves cooing." And he said, "Now, Dad, do you really think?" I said, "Absolutely. It's a Bigfoot." Because right there, in between where that sound was coming from are rose bushes. And then there's a little gap to the wall to the bathroom. And they walk right there between those rose bushes and the wall. And that's where it's coming from. It wasn't a tree, it wasn't anything like that. And anything, if people know about dove, they are not going to make sounds at night because they're asking for an owl or something to snatch them up and eat them because now you've given their location away. But I said, "Yep, that's what it is. It's a Bigfoot." And I just laughed about it. But evidently they were letting me know they were there. That's what it was. That's what I'm talking about, the weird stuff that happens that if you didn't know the outdoors, if you didn't know the animals, you wouldn't understand that it's not going to be a dove. There's no trees over there. It's nighttime. And here's two doves cooing, same as what was down at the gifting station. And yep, it's a Bigfoot. But anyway, see, when you ask me these questions, it keeps triggering things that have happened here because there's been that much that's happened here.
No, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And throughout the years, you build up so many strange experiences that it's hard to tell everything in just one sitting.
It really is. I mean, I took a book one time. Now I try to just do it in the phone, taking pictures. But I had this little notebook, and I was going to write down things that happened. It was a month or less, and it was full. I just like bump it. It's too much. I mean, I've heard them make so many sounds down there that I know is not that animal that it seems like they can imitate anything they want to imitate. They can imitate car doors closing. Oh, you want to hear a good one? Here's a good one. So I went to the gifting station and I put some food out for them. I come back up the trail past towards our house. I'm the only one at the house. Nobody else is here. I go put a bag of corn in the stump feeder up there. Over here in front of the house in a huge tree, I hear a horn honk. And then it honked again. Behind, I can see the front of my house and back of my house from where it's at because it's at one end of the house. There's nobody near my car. There's nobody home to mess with anything. I don't have my keys with me, but here's my horn honking in this tree in the front yard, way up high. This huge tree that my horn's honking. And I'm like, yep, it's letting them know that I'm up here. They can come on and get it. I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, just how? How do they imitate things so perfectly like that? I not only knew it was a horn, but I knew it was my horn. And they've heard my horn before because if I get groceries sometimes and got a whole bunch, I'll honk my horn for the kids to come and help me get it out. So they know they've heard my horn before, And here I'm listening to my horn up in this big old oak tree in the front, and it's just crazy. It really is.
Did they ever seem aggressive or mostly curious?
The only time first off, I've never been afraid of them. I've never gotten the thing of fear. Even when it was the Jurassic Park moments, I wasn't afraid. I just knew that they wanted me to leave. Okay. And I'm smart enough to know if something wants you to leave, just leave. It's not worth, but I never felt threatened at all. I do have something that happened that is really, really, really strange, but it was the same circumstance. It was where a big male was there. 2 weeks later on that one, I found a baby footprint, and he wanted me to leave, and he was trying to get me to leave. Basically, I'm not going to say aggressively. He was telling me to leave. You need to leave now. So, then anyway, that's another weird story. And we've got some weird stories too, like that one. But anyway, 2 weeks later, I found a baby footprint down by the creek because the creek runs right next to the pond. And he wanted me to leave. My wife was mowing the grass with a side by side, and I was mowing the grass. It got up too high. I was mowing the edge with a push mower because when they cut it with a bulldozer, the side goes straight down and the water's 2 to 3 foot from the top of the bank. So I was just running over it to cut the banks and stuff. I don't want her flipping the side by side over trying to cut that. But anyway, it wanted me to leave, but it wasn't a thing like fear of attack. It was just wanted me to leave. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I never felt fear from it. Now, I still to this day don't carry any. I've got plenty of guns. I still to this day don't carry a gun with me anywhere on the property. I carry a shovel and I carry a rake, and I carry a little 9-piece piece. It's got a knife, the screwdriver, and all that stuff if I need it for anything. But I'm never afraid of them. So it gets crazier, doesn't it?
Yeah. And have you ever been to the Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia before?
Absolutely. I've been there several times.
That scat that they have in there from a supposed Sasquatch, is that what you were finding near the property?
It was bigger than that.
Oh my gosh.
It was bigger than that. Yeah.
That's like prehistoric scat.
I mean, I'm telling you, if you would have gotten that into a toilet, you'd have to flush it for 2 to 3 days and put a bunch of Drano and stuff to get it down. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So yeah. I wouldn't want them to go to the bathroom in my toilet. I guarantee you that.
Maybe some of the vocalizations you were hearing is these things trying to push that thing out.
Maybe, yeah. Very possibly. I think that would be more like a, oh.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
Yeah. Oh, me.
Yeah.
But
so overall, you believe you attracted the Sasquatch by planting fruit trees, berry bushes, and creating food plots for the deer and the wildlife in the area and the pond, stocking it with fish.
There was already a group here. I think all that, along with it being a safe spot, see, they watched us several years before they even let us know they were here. It was not like as soon as we moved in that happened. No, it was 3 or 4 years after we got here that it was when I put the Christmas cutout of a Bigfoot in the backyard. I think they possibly thought we knew they were there, and they decided then to let us know that they were there. And that's when they went whistling at night. And then that's when they hit the house. I think they were letting us know that they were there because they thought we knew they were there by putting that Bigfoot cutout out there. That was purely by accident. I mean, that was just one of those things. It's just pure accident. So they let us know they're there. And that's another thing. They were here for all that time and they let us know they're there. But I think all this stuff that we did, I think they saw us feeding the animals. They saw us planting stuff for the deer. They saw us not shooting them and killing them. We did put a pop-up blind down here right off the front yard to watch the front field. We would go down there in the winter and watch them come out and eat and stuff like that. We'd never take a gun, but we would sit and watch them. Now, I did find out the rough way that was one of their big boy trails because they eventually we were having a game between they were pushing it into the woods out of the trail, and then I would put it back out there. Well, the last time I said, okay, well, I don't know what's moving this, if the wind's doing it, but it's not going anywhere now. I put two big zip ties on a tree and the metal pole on it all the way up and down. I think I put two of them on it, one above a limb and then one above another limb down there around the metal. Well, the next time I go down there, the metal's broke, the zip ties are broke. Now, these zip ties are those big wide ones, and there's a hole in the top of it, and it had been shoved into the woods again. I'm like, uh-oh, it wasn't the wind doing it. It was my little buddies in the woods. And it was in there, one of their big boy trails, and the male evidently didn't appreciate me putting it there. And where I was going to make sure it didn't move, he was going to make sure it moved. So just things like that happen. I mean, here, it just happens. I mean, what else can you say in the woods? I'm going to bounce this at you. What else can you say in the woods can rip two zip ties, break that pole, and rip a hole in the top of a pop-up blind that I'm 6'4" and can stand in and push it into the woods? What other animal can do that?
Yeah. And did they ever create structure areas? Did they put the X's up, the arches, teepees, things like that?
Oh yeah. They put up hides down by the gifting station. They put up X's. As a matter of fact, I found out that there was an X down there, and they make X's, I think, for more than one reason. I think they make X's to mark their boundary to other Bigfoot, but they put other X's to tell us to keep out. Because I've had one X where I went in to look at it, and next time I go down there, there's an X on the ground and an X there. And I go to where the X is on the ground, and then the next time I go down there, there's an X on the road before I get to that, an X on the ground and that X. So that's right near where that hill is, where that one's behind, 25 yards behind. So they didn't want me to go in there at all. Then on a road where I drive in and out, there was one there for a long time right next to the creek. And I let another person, a couple of people look at it. They were looking at it and investigating it. Now, this thing had been here for 8 months. And after they looked at it, they ripped it down. They didn't mind if I saw it, but they didn't want me showing it to other people. So that's something I learned is when I've got something like that, they don't mind if I see it. They don't mind if I take a picture of it, but they don't want me to have other people see it. As a matter of fact, Scott and Sheila came here one time during the nursery. It was after the nursery, but I knew during the nursery that the matriarchal mom or the adult mom was at the top of one of the ridges. Down below it is where the baby stayed. She's looking down on them. And then there's a couple that were at different places. But that's where I think the babies were staying. Now, that's an area I don't go in. There are certain areas of the property that is theirs, so I don't go in it. And there's a lot of stuff that people have seen in those places that I hadn't gone. But anyway, they were in there. They found a structure. They call it a hide, but it was made with intertwined vines where two trails meet in front of where the babies were under her. And then where those babies were under there, they found a hide that was as big as a 2-room apartment. And in the middle of it, there were sticks across it. And the leaves in there were all fresh and they were all stamped down. And on the other side of those two sticks, they said it looked like a playpen area. And so when I told them, after I didn't tell them anything at first, where it was or anything, I let them find it. And I said, yeah. I said, the mom was up there on top of the hill. This is where the baby stayed. She'd look right down on them. And then that other one at the end would either hunt for food or it would be an outlook to make sure nothing was coming near the babies. So they saw that, and still to this day, they say that's one of the most amazing things they've ever seen because they hadn't seen anything like that anywhere else because they have vines just intertwined. A perfect hide. So I've seen stuff like that here. I've seen, there's been all kind of stuff, bent trees with logs on it holding the end down and just, you name it, arches. I think I found a place one time that where they were, the little ones practice how to mark arches because every tree in that area was arched, every one. There was not a single tree shorter than 12 foot that wasn't arched. Every one of them were arched.
Wow. And did your family ever experience anything else unusual in the house or on the property other than Bigfoot?
No. No, not other than Bigfoot. Of course, some of the sounds we hear are weird. So some of them are different. So I don't know if that could be anything different, but we have so much, we do have a lot of wildlife here. As a matter of fact, yesterday or the day before, maybe the day before yesterday, no, it was yesterday. I was out there watching a baby hawk fly. Oh, no, baby hawk, a baby bald eagle fly over our house in a circle for about 15 minutes. Those things are so beautiful when they fly. It was just flying in circles above our house looking for squirrels. And then when it would go and kick in those wings, man, those things can move. But I'd seen a pair of full-grown adult eagles here before on a deer kill that the coyotes killed, and they went down right by our driveway. And when I left out, I saw 3 buzzards on it. When I came back, all of a sudden this huge thing is on top of it, standing right on top of it. And only one. And then as I got close to it, it flew up into the tree, a beautiful full-grown bald eagle, because bald eagle would chase the buzzards off to eat the meat. That's why the buzzards were gone, and it was there eating the meat. And then when I went back with my side-by-side to see if I could get a good picture of it, another one flew out of the tree. So there were 2 of them. It was a pair of bald eagles that were on it. One was watching and one was eating. But they're absolutely beautiful animals.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, Neal, we're getting short on time, but I appreciate you for sharing the rest of what you experience on the property. And I know you have a ton more. And yeah, I really do appreciate you taking time out of your life to share these experiences and the books that you've written about what happened on the property. And if people want to know more, I suggest that they check out these books because that's important information. Not all of us can experience Bigfoot activity or have the opportunity to do so, but also people who have experienced Bigfoot activity, you're not going to experience everything on your one property. So it's good to listen to other people's stories so we can kind of put everything together.
If I send you a picture of it, or I can send you the names, can you put them on the part of it that they read, so they can see where to find it?
Absolutely. If you can, send me the links through text message and I'll attach them to the video, and hopefully people will purchase these books and check them out.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, Neal. If you experience more on your property, definitely contact me. I want to hear what else unfolds in the future.
Oh, there's a lot more. I didn't even tell you about what the lady that's here said, and it happened to her 5 times in the last 2 weeks. It's another weirdo thing.
We'll have to do a part 3 then.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. And I appreciate your time today.
All right, talk to you later.
Yep. Talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Neal, thank you again for coming back to share more of your experiences and the stories from your family. Long-term observations like these are rare, and they give listeners another perspective on what may be happening in the forests of Georgia. I think it's really interesting hearing these encounters from family members who have encountered family groups of Sasquatch, and I do believe the Sasquatch seek out certain properties to raise their little ones, and they're always following food, water, and cover, but perhaps they stay away from the deep remote areas when they have these little ones, because they are opportunistic creatures and they are looking for an easy meal. But who really knows, right? That's why I call the channel Sasquatch Theory, because we can only theorize what is truly going on out there. I know a lot of people have definitive answers, but the truth is no one really knows. If you have a Bigfoot encounter you've been bottling up for years, feel free to reach out sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com, and it's certainly not healthy to keep your encounter to yourself, as you will feel disconnected from society if you do that, and you will definitely feel a lot better after talking about it and sharing it openly with other like-minded people. If you made it this far into the podcast, comment "I believe in Bigfoot" down below, and that'll let me know that you watched the entire podcast. And yeah, I really do appreciate those who watch every single one of my videos. It truly means a lot. And if you want more footage, early access to my videos, you can join the membership, and it helps support the channel. And with all that being said, you guys be safe out in the woods.